Hello and welcome to this mini course. So today we are going to make a login system using Laravel and Vue.js 3. So let's take a look at the projects that we are going to make. So the first thing here, we can register a new user. We will handle error or validations error, and also the user can log in. So let's create a user. So hit submit. And once created, we are redirected to the login page. So here, let's log in. Hit login. And I am logged in successfully, and I can now go to the home page. So this is the many projects that we are going to make, and also we can log out. If I hit log out, I can log out successfully. So let's start coding our projects. I have already created a new fresh Laravel application. So we are going to create first the backend, then we will move to the front end. So let's start coding. So the first thing that we need is to create or to migrate the database. We have already the user migration. So only we need to migrate the database. So let's run the command php artisan migrate. Let's create the database because I don't have a database. Now all the tables have been migrated. Next, let's create the controller. So we will have only one controller, which is the user controller. So let's create the controller. So its artisan not, I have here missing T. So hit enter. Let's also create some requests that we will need later to validate the data. So the first one is for storing user. We will name it store user request. And second one is for login the user. We will name it auth user request. So next, let's move to the controller and start creating our functions. So the first one will be for storing users. Public function, let's name it store. This function will use the request that we have created, store user request, to validate data. And once the data is validated, request validated. So not this, but let's remove this one. Validated. So once the data is validated, we start creating our user. Creates, and we provide name. We get it from the request. Name and email and password. So here we have the email and we have the password, but the password needs to be encrypted. So we will use the hash class hash make and give it the password. So once the user is created, so we return a response telling the user that the account has been created successfully. So account has been created successfully. And that's all for this function. We need to import this class, store user, and also the hash. So don't forget to import the hash and store user request. Next function will be for authenticating users. So let's add function. So we name it auth. So we'll take the auth request or user request, and we get the request. And same thing here once the data is validated. So let's import also the user. So the user inside app models user. So once the data is validated or the provided credentials are validated, let's also import the auth user request. Don't forget to import them. So once we have the data validated, so we look for the user with the email provided. So the email, we get it from the request email, and we find first user. So the first user, if we have this user, we need to check first if we don't have the user and not. So we will compare provided password with the stored password using the hash check, and we give it the provided password by the user and the user password. So here we check if password is the same. So if not, we need to send a response to the user. If yes, we need to create the token. So if not, if we don't find the user with email or the password is not the same, so we send an error and we tell the user that these credentials do not match any of our records. If the user exists, so we need to return the user with the message. So let's bring here this one and put it here. So the message telling him that you are logged in successfully, and we need to return also the user, and the user is the one that we have already fetched, this one, and we need also the current token. So we'll need current token, and token we can get it using the user create token, and we give it name. You can name it as you want. I name it new user, and here bring the plain text token, which is the token. So this one is for login or authenticating the user. We have another one which is for login out the user, and here we will use the default request. And once the user is here, we will use the request to get currently logged in user and get the current access token and remove it. So we delete the current access token and we tell the user that he is logged out successfully. So let's bring this one and put it here. And here we tell him logged out successfully. So those are the functions that we will need. So we have store for storing users, and we have auth for authenticating the users, And also we have the logouts for logging out the users. So let's now add the requests. It starts with this one. So here we need to put it through. And here we have name. Name is required. Let's give it a max of 255. And also the email is required. And it must be an email and a max of 255. And we have a password. Password is required also, and minimum of 6 characters and a max of 255. So it's same thing, we will use it, or let's add for the email, let's make it also unique, and the table is users. And let's take the email and the password and add them here for the auth user. So here we have true, and here we provide the roles. So we remove the unique, so we don't need the unique here, only required and email and max, and the password will be minimum of 6 characters and maximum of 255. Now we have the auth requests. We need to add the routes, and the routes will be inside the API. So let's add the routes. So let's change this one to group. So we'll group the routes that will use the auth Sanctum middleware. And here let's remove this one, we don't need it, and the request. And here we need to add first route. The first route will get the currently logged in user. And here we have the request and the request. And this route will return an array that contains the currently logged in user. So we can get it from the request user. And also we need the current token. The current token, and current token is inside, or we can get it also using the request, and we call the bearer token function. So here let's put the comma, and the next route will be for logging out the user. It will be a post request taken us to the user logouts, and it will use the user controller and function logouts. So this is the route for logging out users. Next, we need the routes for logging and registering users, and this route doesn't require the user to be logged in. So we have here user register, and it will take us to store, and this one for login, and it will take us to auth. So now we have done with the backend. We have created the controller, the requests, and we have provided the routes. Next, we need to move to the front end. So try to create a new view application. I have already done this, and let's start coding our front end. So the first thing, we need to install the packages that we need, but let's remove, I think we don't need, let's see what we have here. So we don't need the assets for now, and also this component hello world, and this one, let's change it. Let's remove all this and use only, let's use only components. Okay, so the package is not working, so let's bring back the code that we have. So let's remove all this, keep only the style if we want to add any styles, and remove this one and this one, bring it down here and here, and all this, remove all the content for now. And for the main JS, so here we will keep the same thing, and style, let's remove this one, style, we don't need it. So here, okay, let's keep this file if we want to add any custom styles to our projects. So now we have the app. So as I said, we need to install the packages that we need. So let's start adding the packages. So the first one that we need is Axios. Also we need Bootstrap for styling, and Bootstrap icons for icons. Also we need Pinia to manage states, and View router. And also we need the View notification for toast notification, and we need to, I think it's next. I think next is the latest version. We need to provide next. If it did not work, we will check the package inside the npm website. So let's wait until it's done, and then we will come back again. And now everything are installed. All the packages have been added. Now let's import inside, not inside the app, but inside the main.js. Let's import CSS files. So we need so let's keep Bootstrap on the top. So we need to import the Bootstrap inside. It's inside this, and all these paths are inside the node modules. If you open node modules, you will find folder Bootstrap. Inside it there is this, and inside this there is CSS, and inside CSS there is the bootstrap.min.css. Same thing for the JS. So only we change this one to JS, and here JS. And we need also to import the Bootstrap icons. It's inside font, and Bootstrap icons CSS.css. So what else we have? We need to import the View tostification. So the CSS file, it's inside dist and index.css. And what else we have? We have, I think that's all for the CSS and JS files. We need to import, create Pinia, so we can add Pinia to our projects. So create Pinia from Pinia, and later we will create the routes, and we need also to import the toast, so we can use so it's not from Bootstrap, but it's not from Bootstrap, it's from the View tostification. So it's okay, let's write it manually. So it's from View tostification. And now we have the app here. So we need, before we mount our app, so we need to use so let's add dot here to use Pinia, and also to use the toast, so we can add toast notifications, and later we will add the routes, or let's add the routes now. So let's go back to the app file, and create our routes. So not inside our app. We will go back to the app later. So it's inside the src here. We need to add another folder. Let's name it router, and inside it let's add another file, index.js, and here we will provide the routes. But before we provide the routes, let's create some folder, or one folder, for we name it auth, and inside this folder let's add a login.view components, and here let's add structure, and also we need another one for registering users, and let's provide also the structure. And also inside components let's add the home components and add structure. So for now we have all the components. Let's create the routes. So to create the routes we need to provide a variable, so let's name it router, and we need to create router, and don't forget to import it. You don't need to add the virgule. So here inside let's set the history, and the history will be creates web hash history, and don't forget to import it also. And we provide the routes, and the routes will be an array, and inside array we have the routes. So the first one will take us to the home page, so let's give it a name of home. And what else we have? The components will be home, so we don't have here the components. Okay, we will import it manually. What else we have? We will add something about later. Next we need the next routes. The next routes will take us to the login, and let's name it login, and component is the login components. Same thing for the register. It will take us to register, and component is the register. So I think those are all the routes that we need, and we need to export default router. But before we use it, we need to add another functions here. So to check, so if the user is logged in, he can access the home component. If not, he cannot access the home component. And if he is not logged in, he can access the login and the registration component. So let's add two functions here that will check if the user is logged in or not. So we need function, let's name it check if user is logged in. So this function, as I said, it will check for the user if he is logged in or not. But for now we will just keep it as it is, only it's empty function. We will add code later, and we need another one. This one is check if user is not logged in. So if user is not logged in, and we need these two functions to we need to use these two functions here. So inside the home component, so before we enter to, or we are in the home component, we need to check if the user is logged in. And here for the login, so we need the other one to check if the user is not logged in. If he is not logged in, he can access this routes, which is the register. So here it's register. There is missing T. So that's all for this. We will come back again to the routes. Now we need to create store. So we need to create our first store. So let's do that now.